Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge and welcome to this week's reading wrap up. So we have a couple of things to talk about at the outset of this today. So first off, our romance Booktube crew has started something new. And now, you know, on my channel, I'm always talking about my Discord. It's something that I started for my channel for the buddy reads that I do monthly, as well as just a chance to interact with you guys, to ask you questions when you have them, and to just, you know, make my community as a small booktuber bigger. Well, our Booktube crew, we decided to start a Discord that's for everyone. So if you watching this right now, if you are a romance booktuber or you're someone watching my video and you love to talk about romance, you'd like to get a heads up on any sales that are happening, you would like tips about finding, you know, the books that you're looking for, if you want to be able to talk with your favorite creators on Romance Booktube, there is a link in my description box that will take you to the Discord. Now, if you've never heard of Discord before, you know, haven't listened when I've talked about it before, or you're brand new, this is the first video of mine that you're seeing. Discord is this app that was originally for like gamers, because you can be messaging on it while you're playing different games and everything. But a lot of people on YouTube, we use this to connect with each other. It's just a way that makes it easier than, like, it doesn't have the same drama of Twitter. It's a little more easier to moderate it if anything were to get out of hand, if anyone were to, you know, ever make someone else, you know, uncomfortable. It's a lot easier to control it than counting on Twitter to do it, basically. And we wanted a low drama space where we can just be focused on romance. And so if you go to that link, you can download the app on your phone, and there's also a desktop app, which the desktop app is my favorite because while I'm working during the day, I always have it open in a little window and I can be talking with my friends all day long. So basically everyone you've ever seen me collab with is already a part of this. Jess from Peace Love Books is there, Tamika from Library of Tomes, Sarah from Steeped in Books. They're all already on this platform and they're waiting to talk with you, and it's going to be awesome. So I wanted to kind of announce that at the beginning of this because it's something we just started last week, and there's already about like 30 people in there. And so we have it separated into all these different categories. We can talk about different tropes. We can talk about different books you're interested in. We have a read-along or a readathon that we're planning for August, that the details of that are going to be in there. So just help you to have the inside scoop on everything that's going, and to just have people to talk with all the time, which is super fun. So let's go ahead and dive into this week's reading, which I read 12 books this week, which is about average for me. Oh, definitely a little less than the first week of the month, but that's totally fine because I did a lot of Audible learning or reading this time. So let's go ahead and dive in. So the first one of the week that I finished, which I did listen to on Audible Escape, but I also have the book, is I listened to The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. I have owned this book for a little while now. I'd heard about other books in the series and I wanted to get to those books, and I wanted to start at the beginning because I'm someone who, because I've read as many historicals as I have, I've just learned that they're more satisfying to me when I read them in order, or at least start a series in order if I can. So this one is amazing, and what bumped it to the top of my list is when I hauled this book, my friend Jess at Peace Love Books, she said that this is like one of her favorites. And so I was like, okay, and I found it on Audible Escape. They actually have the whole series on Audible Escape, which is how I'm going to continue listening to it because I really, really loved the narrator. This was actually a male narrator for a historical romance, which I haven't seen another one of those. I've seen males do like paranormal romance, or I've seen them be like in a contemporary romance where it's a male and a female, but I've never had a male for historical romance. And so this one is about Dorian Blackwell, who's the Black Heart of Benmore, and he's this ruthless villain, so we're told. He like helps run, you know, the underworld, and the outer world. And then we are dealing with Farah, who her name is Farah Lee Mackenzie, and she works for the police. Excuse me. But she also used to be in love with this man named Dugan Mackenzie. And now Dorian Blackwell, he was in prison with Dugan, and he had heard about Farah from Dugan. And when Dugan is senselessly murdered in prison, he asked Dorian and their fellow, you know, ruffians in Newgate prison to find Farah and take care of her. And so it's taken Dorian a very long time to find Farah, but now that he finds her, he goes about making her his wife, and he's going to take care of her in the name of his friend. There is some things true and some things false about what I just explained, but I'm explaining what's on the back of the book. This was such an amazing start to the story, and I've heard about other books in this series, and I cannot wait to continue them. Like, I'm super excited to do it. So it was wonderful. I gave it 5 stars. I cried a couple times. There's definitely trigger warnings in this book. There's trigger warnings for assault of a child. There is allusions to what happened to these boys in Newgate prison. I'm sure you can guess, because they were very young when they were in prison in the beginning. There's also a lot of emotional abuse that's talked about, and our hero has serious PTSD. So, a few things to wonder about. Then, also on Audible Escape, I listened to Vengeance Road by Christine Feehan. This is the second book in the Torpedo Inc. Motorcycle Club book, but this is also a paranormal romance because Christine Feehan, that's what she does. And so all the members of Torpedo Inc., they are a special motorcycle club. They actually rescue children from slavery or from sex trafficking. And this particular hero, each of them has like a special power basically because they're magical children. They were like experimented on and then taught to be like warriors for this like sick, twisted Russian dude basically. And so we have Steele, who he's their like doctor of this crew, and you definitely read about him in the first book, which I think I read last month. I didn't read it that long ago. And then there's Breezy Simmons, who was his girlfriend, his old lady, sorry, I'll use the right terms, was his old lady when he was undercover in a different motorcycle club. And then when he was going to be busting this club, he broke up with her, and in a horrible, horrible way. He broke up with her and got her banned from her own family's club. Now, this family is horrible. Her father and brother like abused her and were cruel to her, and everyone was horrible to her. He was the only one who was good to her. And so when he broke up with her and left her, he also left her with a baby. And because of the way he treated her, she was not going to reach out to find him, even though he always planned to find her again. And so now we're meeting back up 3 years later, and she has come to ask him and Torpedo Inc. for help because her son has been kidnapped by her father and brother. And so she needs the help of Torpedo Inc. to get them back. And so Steele has a lot of groveling to do. He has a lot of work to do to undo the damage he did to this woman. This book was very good. It was very painful. I ended up giving it a 3.5 because here's the thing with this series so far. So I really liked the first one, and I was really excited for this because I really liked Steele in the first one. But one of the things that Christine does in this series that I'm finding is that she drags out, and she's very repetitive in the thought process. And so like things that get explained to us, the feelings that they have, they just keep getting repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. And it just took up an extra 100 pages of this 436 page book of the same argument getting had over and over and over. Like one argument, I started counting, it happened 6 times just in the last half that I was counting it. And so with the Audible, like I ended up like skipping over a lot of stuff, but the sex is always really hot in these books. They have just a little bit of paranormal into them, and I really love this also as like an intro to like a motorcycle group too, because they are a heroic motorcycle group. So it's a dark world they're dealing in, and all of these characters have PTSD because of how they were raised as children. But their main goal in life now is to save children. And so I really, really love that about them. And this was a good, like, this was a second chance romance, and there was a lot of groveling, but it was also like some of the arguments got so repetitive that I was just like, okay, can we be done now? please. So then, move to the next page here. The next book that I finished was a Cresley Colt. So I read, do I have this one? Yes. I listened to this on Audible, one that I purchased. So this was not an Audible Escape. You're going to have to buy these. However, they're cheaper than an Audible credit is. They're almost the whole series is either $9.99 or I just found one that was only $7.99. So if you're someone who has Audible, I mean, you're going to get a better deal if you purchase the Audible yourself than if you use your credit. Just letting you know. I know you already have got your credit, but save your credit for a book where the book is like $30 because these are $10 each. And I've also been finding these at thrift stores and everything. So this is book 4. I think this one was book 4. Yeah, this is book 4. This is about Naomi Laress and Conrad Roth. So this was my first Roth brother, I believe. No, Sebastian's a Roth brother too. So I did read another Roth brother. But this one, he is actually like a full-fledged vampire. This series is bananas. And this one is about a ghost and a vampire, like I said. So his brothers, the beginning of this novel, because this is one you could still read as a standalone. Like, I've been listening to the Fated Mates podcast as I read these. I'm listening to the episodes about it. And the first, like, 4 of these books, you could enter this series through any of them because they all take place near around the same time. It's after this one that you need to have read like one of these books before you keep going. Does that make sense? So if any of these beginning ones, if you want to start with a vampire or a werewolf or a Valkyrie, you can kind of do that and see, you know, which one's the most interesting to you. But this one is about Conrad, and though he does fight evil, he fights evil by like draining them to death. So in this series, like, there's vampires, but there's 2 factions. So there's a faction that their eyes have not gone red because they've never drank someone to death. And then there's the kind called the Four Bears where the Four Bears are the ones who haven't drank someone to death. But if you have drank someone to death, you are a vampire. But he's been only doing that to evil people. And when you drink someone to death, you kill them and then you amass their power. So Conrad is very powerful and strong. And so his brothers, his other 3 brothers, they kidnap him one night and they lock him in an abandoned mansion. Well, they purchased the mansion, but it was previously abandoned because they are going to detox him off of like blood. And so they do this to him. And inside this mansion is the ghost of Naomi Laress, who's been there for 80 years when she was murdered by her fiance, who was very abusive, and he killed her. And so she is haunting this place, and no one's able to see her or interact with her except for Conrad, because Conrad is her fated mate. And so though she can't blood him because he's dead, which I know you don't know what that word might mean. But for vampires, when they find their fated mate, they're able to get erection for the first time. So vampires can't have sex with anyone but their fated mate. But she's dead when they meet. So he's able to see her where no one else can see her, but he still can't touch her. And that leads to some amazing things because Conrad, he's also a virgin, and he was a virgin when he turned into a vampire, and then he's never been able to have sex because he's a vampire. And so, whereas Naomi was a really kind of like experienced woman beforehand, and so she actually like teaches him a lot of things, and it's good, guys. Like, it's really good. I really like that one. I really liked Conrad and the things that he was struggling with. And the Roth brothers are very interesting. Like, they're very interesting. So then I reread, and I don't have this in my hands because I just borrowed it to one of my friends who asked me for age gap recs. I read Before I Ever Met You, and this is on Audible Escape. This is by Karina Halley. This was a book that was on my TBR as a reread. And I was excited to do it because I saw that a lot of Karina Halley's books are on Audible Escape. So, good thing to keep in mind. And this is an age gap about this girl. Her and her son are moved back to live with her parents. She's only 26. And she left an abusive partner. And she doesn't tell anyone that he was abusive. She just tells them she's leaving him. And her father gets her a job being the assistant of his like co-owner of a animation company, which is actually really cool. There's a lot of like movie terms in this, and it's really interesting. And he's 40, and he's recently just got divorced and moved to Toronto. This takes place in Canada, and they have an instant connection. And it's a really, really good one. I like it because the man is so into her, and he's really trying to play it cool because it's his best friend's daughter, but he just is like a carer, and they do a lot of things as friends. So this is kind of like, it really is a mix of like this age gap, and then it's like friends to lovers because they become really close while she's his assistant, and then things just like lead to another, and it's adorable. So this is still a read that is a 5 out of 5 for me. However, I would rate the Audible at only like a 3.5, and all of that is because of the male's voice. So I can't remember the name of the male narrator, but I feel like he didn't do enough homework about the character he was reading, because this man, he's supposed to be 40 years old, he's more sophisticated, he's lived a life, and the voice of the male narrator was just like so preppy. He belonged in a college romance. Like his voice would have been perfect for like a college jock in a book. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? I love those books too. But this narrator was just not well suited. So like the voice that the female narrator did for the man was actually like sexier than when the man was talking. And like, come on, you guys. Like when you're listening to a sexy romance, like you need that male voice to be on point. So I'm just saying this is on Audible Escape, but I really didn't like the narrator's voice at all. But I do think this is also available in Kindle Unlimited. I haven't checked recently, so you can maybe get it that way. Then I read One Night Is Never Enough by Anne Mallory. This, oh my gosh, this book is so good. I had to buy this as an ebook because I just couldn't wait to get it. But I heard about this on Fated Mates, and this is about a girl who her life is all set up. Her father's going to be finding her an arranged marriage, and she is the most beautiful girl in the ton right now. So her father knows he has serious bargaining power finding her a husband. Well, her father is also a gambler, but also that her dad doesn't really have a chance because the head of the underworld, who owns a gambling hell with his friends, he catches a glimpse of her and is just like, I want her. So he tricks her dad / goads her dad into making a bet for $10,000 versus one night with his daughter. Now that sounds skeevy. I know it does. However, it's his only way that he's going to get to spend any time with her, because people are going to keep her away from him no matter what. So it really is uncomfortable though when you're leading up to this, because the dad is just like, you're going to spend a night with him. No one's going to know about it. So whatever he's going to do to you, no one's going to know about it. And she does kind of have a choice, because she could like tell her mom, or she could tell someone and stop it. But her dad says like, he's going to relieve my debts, all of our debts, if you do this. And so she agrees to do it. But when she gets to the room, all he wants to do is play chess with her. And so they play chess for half the night. And then they both fall asleep actually. And so nothing happens. And so there's just so much verbal sparring, and he's just like whipping her into a frenzy. And then when she leaves though, she's like, I feel like I got like gypped out of this night. And he's like, oh, this is not going to be the last time we see each other. This was just the beginning. And I'm going to give you a little taste to remember me. So then he kisses her and gives her like, her first kiss, the best kiss she's ever had. And then he just leaves. And so he leaves her like happy that nothing happened, but she also by the end of that night had wanted something to happen. So he spends the next few weeks finding very creative ways to leave her notes. And the notes all just say soon. So one gets left literally like in a crack in the wall as she's walking by. He finds ways to bump into her in the street and leave them in her pocket. Or one time he's able to slip it into her corset. And all these notes just say, soon. And so by the time these two finally interact with each other, the tension is bananas. So I did give this book only 4.5 stars because it breaks my cardinal sin, which is I hate when people get together on the very last page of a book. And there was no epilogue to this story either. And there was an amazing setup of like him going to, well, I'm not going to tell you because you should read this book. It's totally worth it. And some people will be fine with it because obviously they don't just have sex on the last page of the book. Like eventually there's other things going on between them and it's delicious. But I hate when it gets settled on the last page, like, and then there's no epilogue even. So I did ding half a point because I hate that. It annoys me so much. It'll ruin a good book for me real quick, but that one was amazing. So then I finally read Teacher by Fiona Cole. This is the last book in the Voyeur series. This was on Kindle Unlimited. I was so excited to read this. I've read every book in this series. I love them. They all center around this Voyeur Club, which is owned by Daniel and Kane, I think are the owners of the club. And this one is about Daniel, who he is the best friend of Kane, who we saw in another book, and also the uncle of Alexandra, who like married his friend. So we've seen him in other books before. And what this book is about is it's about him and then Megan. I might have just made that up because Megan's in another book we read too. I totally just forgot her name. I'm the worst. Who we know about her because she was kidnapped. Her and her twin sister were kidnapped when they were like 16 years old. They were being trained to be sex slaves, and their brother Eric was able to save only her. So her twin actually died. I know the twin's name is Sophia, but so for the last like 10 years she's been dealing with this, and so now she's trying to get over, like, she wants to date and move on, but she has a lot of obviously hang-ups about sex, and she's never been able to have sex of her own volition, and she's never been able to get herself off either. She had before what happened to her when she was a teenager, but she never has since. And so the inciting incident of this is that her gal friends, they have like got her a free pass to Voyeur so that she can go and like watch a sex scene, because that's what you do at this club. You literally can like pick out what your fantasy is and go watch like live porn together. And she picks like this super like basic scene that is just like a loving couple having sex together, and she freaks out because she just can't handle it. And so she's running out of the room and she runs into Daniel, and they're kind of sort of friends at this point, and he ends up like, of course this is a proposition in a romance novel, but it actually is like a big responsibility to take on, because he offers to sit with her when she's watching it and like explain things and like be there to comfort her. And guys, it is so good. Like, I cried multiple times about this, because obviously they end up in a friendship that becomes a friends to benefits, and he basically like, yes, I know there's a benefit to this too, because to him too, because she's beautiful and he's attracted to her. But he basically says, he's like, my body is yours. Like, I'm not going to do anything you want. At any point in any experience, you can tell me to stop, and I can control myself. That's a lie that people can't. So like, my body is yours. Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to try? What do you want to do? And it's so good. Like, it's so good because of course you hear that scenario, like, that's a scenario that is going to be good for him because he has this girl wanting to try all these things with him. But it's still such a vulnerable thing for him to be like, I'm willing to answer any question. I'm willing to do anything you want. I'm willing to drop cold, dead stop if you need me to. And it's so beautiful. Like, I loved it. I loved it. And of course there's like drama because it's a friends with benefits where they make rules because they're like, we're not going to fall in love, blah, blah, blah. But that happens all the time. So that was fantastic. That whole series is great. Each character has something so dark that they're like dealing with. There's one about Eric, her brother. That one's an age gap for him too. A lot of the books in this series are age gaps, like 4 out of the 6 are age gaps. There's a male-male relationship. There's a secret baby like it has everything. There's something for everyone in the series. I love it. You should read it. Then I listened to Beyond Eden on Audible Escape. This is one of my favorite books forever. I've owned this book for 15 years. It still has the like writing on top. So this was a book in one of my high school teacher's libraries, and when she went from teaching high school to middle school, she got rid of all of her books that had sex scenes in them, so she gave me and my best friend a bunch of her books. And so this is the copy that I've had all that time. And so this book actually came out in 1992 originally, and this book is a contemporary romance, but there's a little bit of a mystery aspect into it upon a reread. But there are like a ton of trigger warnings for this one. So the inciting incident of this is we have Lindsay Fox, whose real name is Eden. And when Eden was 18 years old, she was raped by her older sister's husband, who was a prince. Her family's very wealthy, and she was kind of like the ugly duckling, and her sister's 10 years older than her, and he married an Italian prince. And so he invites her to Paris to visit him and her sister, and actually her sister's not there, and actually he rapes her. And she gets brought to the hospital, and they're really cruel to her there. Remember, this is set in like the 90s, and that would have been the 80s in the story-wise. And so she's raped by him, and then she's really like raped by the doctors again when they're doing this. And then she gets blamed for everything. Even though her sister like knows that her husband raped. She came in on it and actually shoots her husband. But because they fear scandal so much, everything gets blamed on Lindsay. And so Lindsay like tries to go on. She ends up becoming a very successful model, and she has a stalker. So that leads us up to current times, where we have Taylor, who becomes her bodyguard. So this is like a bodyguard romance. And this woman is a complete mystery to him, because she is going by Eden at this point, because she doesn't want anyone to know. Because again, this is very famous. This would be like if, honestly, like, I'm trying to think of someone who's applicable, but someone famous, there was a huge scandal about it, and so she changed her name, and she doesn't look like she used to look, because she has like grown into herself and everything. And she meets SC Taylor, who's supposed to protect her, and slowly like they fall in love, and he realizes she has all these hang-ups, and like she has never had sex before, and he's just the most patient, amazing guy, while still being a serious alpha. Like, oh god, I was afraid I wouldn't love this book as much as I did, because Catherine Coulter like frightens me to reread some of her books, because I just know that they'll be really problematic for me. I hate that word, but I'm worried because they're my favorites. But this was just as good as it was before. In fact, I appreciated it more because the last time I read this was probably 5-6 years ago. And I kind of had just read my favorite parts, because there's some amazing things. There's other ways that Taylor and Lindsay's lives have connected in their past, and all that stuff, kind of like how they may have like crossed paths before it comes out. And so he's protecting her from a stalker and someone trying to kill her. And it's just great. But her family's horrible to her, so there's serious like verbal abuse from family members. There's a graphic rape scene pretty early on. And I just remember that shocking me, because I'd never read a rape scene before. It was the first rape scene I'd ever read, and I was like 15. And so that's always like stayed in my head. And it's amazing. And so this is on Audible Escape. And this one is read by 2 narrators, and it's read as like I love books like this, where like the male does all the male voices and the female does all the female voices. So it's not alternating perspectives. It's whenever it's so it's mixed together. It's like an arranged one, where if a female's talking, even though the male is describing, the female's voice comes in. Do you know what I mean? It's good. This held up so good, and I had a wonderful time re-listening to one of my favorite stories from when I was young. Then, that same day, I finally got the e-arc for Dismount by Lucia Franco, which may be why you're coming to this video, because I definitely put it in the thumbnail of this. I am part of Lucia Franco's mailing list, and I was waiting for news of when this would come out, and at the beginning of June or mid-June, she had said we could apply to get her e-arcs because they weren't going to send out very many e-arcs for this. And I got approved, and I can't believe I got approved. So I got the book on Wednesday. I read it all that day, put up my review. I have a very more detailed review on my, I can't talk, on my Goodreads. I've already had a few people message me to ask me certain questions. I'm not going to give any of those questions away in this because I believe the book comes out in just 2 weeks. But you feel free to message me, not here, but either join my Discord and you can message me there, or you can message me on Instagram or privately, and I will tell you things you want to know. Because I don't mind spoilers, and if you want to know specific things, I will tell you. I did give it 4.5 stars. I did knock half a star for a specific reason, which I'll tell that here. So if you've read the other 4 books, there's a serious cliffhanger leading into this one. And as with her other books, they're pretty drawn out, and they get in, Kova and Adriana have these cyclical issues that they're going through all the time based on who they are, what their ages are, and what's going on. And I just was sick of those by this point, because the things that they've went through and where we're at, I needed them to be moving past them a little faster than they were, and I needed them to talk more than they get to in this book. That was a big issue for me, because I feel like that's what I needed to see from them. And then the ending, which was satisfying in one regard, in regards to I was satisfied with what happened. I am unsatisfied with how much time is spent on. There's none. That's what I mean. I was satisfied with the conclusion, where they end up in life, but I'm unsatisfied with the amount of time devoted to it. I wanted more time, especially because when you lay out all the pages of this series, there was now 5 books of them. Books 3 and 4 are very long. They are very long books, and there's so much repetitive arguments. There's so much repetitive situations. And then we get to this book where I just wanted it so bad, and it was nope, I'm not going to spend too much time explaining this. So that was my biggest thing. And again, I go into more detail on this in my Goodreads, and if you'd like any more details, you can message me. I have no problem sharing spoilers. I'm just not going to do it on this until the book's out, because they didn't send out very many e-arcs for this. So I know that, number one, if you even have read all of them, they should be being re-released on Amazon with the release of Dismount. I believe that's what Lucia's plan is. She made serious changes to how the story is set up. Not how it's set up. The age of Adriana and the state that it takes place in, all 4 of those first books were changed. She isn't reissuing them if you already own the copy, because it really only changes her age and where it happens. And then in this 5th book, there is a few things that happen where I'm you couldn't have done this if she wasn't 18. So I think that change in age really did affect how she finished the book out, if that makes sense. And I think it was a good change. I think she should have started it there in the beginning, but I'm sure when she first started it, she didn't know where it was going to go. But if you have always wanted to read this series and haven't been able to, keep an eye out, because Lucia has done serious work so that it could be available to you again, and not just on her website, because currently that is the only place you can buy these first 4 books, is from her website. You can get the ebook that way. So I loved this series. I don't mind taboo stuff. I personally, like, the reason that I don't have a problem with this is because Adriana's annoying and she's dumb sometimes, but she's also, like, very aware of what she's doing. And you could say, sure, 16-year-olds think they know what they're doing and Kova should be the adult. I agree with that. Like, yeah, in real life, I agree with that. In the book, though, that we spend all of the time in her head, I know as I'm reading it that she fully knows what she's doing and that she's ruining their lives as she's doing it. And she's not a likable character. And so that makes it delicious to me. I never feel like she's being victimized when I read this book. Even though as an adult, if I were to see a teenager this happening to her, I would be just as pissed as like everyone else. Like, I get it. But it is romance. It's a fantasy. It is a taboo. Don't read it if it's going to offend you. She says that at the beginning of every book. If you have a problem with this underage relationship, just leave. Like, you don't need to complain about it. Just leave. But you know me. I've ranted about taboo things before. So that was, anyway, getting to read this book, I had a huge knot in my stomach the whole time. Like, this is one of the series that, like, just keeps that anxious ball in your stomach because you're like, how the fuck is this going to work out? And, I mean, it's over. I'm not telling you if it worked out or not. But it's over. So then I was in the mood. I was like, I should keep reading some e-arcs because I don't have a ton in my NetGalley. Some people have like 10, 20, 30 to do. I keep it around 5. Like, I don't request, like, once I've been accepted for like 5, I like wait till I've read some before I do more. So I read Shoot the Moon by Jacqueline Gray, I think is the name. And this was a novella. This is the second in a series, which I didn't know. That's something that I don't love about NetGalleys. I feel like they're not clear enough, but it's a set of companion novellas, so it's fine. It's just that I would have bought the first one before I read the second one. Like, I've done that with another series. There's a historical romance I just got approved for on NetGalley, and it's the third in a series. So I bought the first 2 because it's a historical romance. I'm probably going to like it anyway. So I never ended up reading the first one in the series, but this is a male-male romance based around a BDSM club. It's about one of the owners, Jesse Hart, and then a young man named Adam who comes to the club with his friend because there's also like dancing on one floor, and then him and Jesse catch each other's eye and they end up having a little relationship with each other. It is an interesting one because Jesse is a dom, but Adam doesn't consider himself a sub, but he's okay with like trying some scenes out. And so it's interesting their conversation about it and how it went. I ended up giving this, let me see. Oh, I didn't write this one on this sheet. I gave that one a 3.5 star because I thought it was good. It was really hot. But it's not satisfying. That one needed another 100 pages. That one needed to be a full-length novel because it just wasn't as satisfying. Because the thing I don't like is when you have a novella and you're telling like a period of time, but then you like skip a bunch of time. So it like skips like a month worth of time like in this. And I'm just like, well, then why'd you make it a novella? Like, I wanted it to be longer than it was. So that was an issue for me. And so it was only a 3.5 because it just kind of bugged me. So that comes out soon. So then I read Bound by the Summer Prince, and this is the second book in the, I can't remember the name of the series, but this is by Minstrel Dawn, and this is a fantasy romance with fated mates and BDSM. And it's beautiful. And so it's about a fae world, which is on like a parallel plane from ours, or like a hidden world, whatever. And they're all about these like different leaders of the courts. The first one was taken by the huntsman, he doesn't own a court, but he's like in charge of like justice in this world. And he's like a hunter for them. That's why he's called a huntsman. And then this one is about the Summer Prince, who in the last book, his dad, the Summer King, he messed up and he had to be put to death because he did some horrible things. And so there's still the summer queen, but she's really, you know, kind of lonely now, because even though her husband had turned bad, like they'd been mates for so long. And so his mom's not doing a super great job running things right now. And each kingdom always needs to have like 2 leaders at a time. And so the summer prince is kind of taking over the king role, but he still needs to find his mate before his mother can like step down and stop being queen. And so, as is the case with this series, well, in the first one, the huntsman was in our world and he was drawn to her. And in this one, she accidentally falls through into their world, and she's actually a con woman, which was really fun. And so she ends up getting scooped up by the summer prince, and he's like, "You're my maid, oh my god." And so she's bewildered by this. She wants to get home, but she decides to run a con on him, because she's like, well, if I'm supposed to be the queen of this, he's gonna treat me really good and this could be really fun. But, you know, she ends up falling in love with him instead. Spoiler, it's happening. So that was really fun. I gave that one a 3.5 though, because there's a lot of extra stuff. Like, these are really sexy, fun books, but they are like building the fantasy world too. And I'm not as interested in that fantasy world. Like, some of the fantasy books I'm reading, like, I'm really interested in the world, like A Gathering of Dragons. I'm so interested in the world as a whole, so I don't mind when it's not sexy times. But these ones all have like a really like slow burn, because they're fated mates, but the consent in these books is on point. I forgot to mention that about Taken by the Huntsman. But even though he has this like bone deep need to bone with this woman, like the consent has to 100% be there. And I love that. I love when alpha males, even though they just want to like bang it out, are still like, but you gotta say yes first. And say yes all along the way. Oh, I love it. I love it. But the story wasn't my favorite. But I think other people might feel differently. If you don't need as much smut as I do, they're great. And the scenes, like, oh yes, I forgot about a scene. There's a scene where like, so his power is like, he has like power over like certain elements. And when they're having this one scene, he is able to make a dildo arise out of the stone on the edge of the pool that he like sits her on, and then has the stone like come up over her legs and like be, just think about it. Just think about it. It was amazeballs. It was great. But the sex scenes were what I liked the best, and there wasn't a lot of them, so you know how it goes. Did I skip one? I skipped talking about one. I skipped talking about Dark Needs After Dusk. Which day did I read that? Because I listened to that one and then I listened to this one right in a row. I listened to these the same day. Sorry, I didn't write these on here. So Dark Needs After Dusk, their titles are so alike, okay? Is book 5 in IAD, which is about, we get our first demon. The demons are really fun. So this one is about, what's his face? I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, but the demon prince, and he knows who his mate is, and she is a half Valkyrie, half Fury, and she is the prophesied one who will have the next heir, who will either be raised for good or for evil. So whoever gets her pregnant will be for good or for evil. And so this woman, she was given to humans to raise when her mother died. And she is a like math genius and computer coder. And she gets kidnapped by these evil demons, and they are trying to rape her. And there's literally 12 of them, and they are going to gang rape her and hope that one of them gets her pregnant. Now, our hero demon, which I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. He also needs her so that they can get a sword that will help the demons get their kingdom back. So he's also her mate. And so it's a big to-do because he lies to her for most of the book. And it's kind of annoying. So I think I only gave that one no, I guess I did give it 5 stars. because I'm a sucker for these books. But anyway, Kiss of a Demon King is book 6, and that one is about Rydstrom, who's the Demon King, granted the title, and Sabine, who is a, like, illusion, like, she's called Sabine the Illusionist or something, and she's a sorceress, and she kidnaps Rydstrom because she needs him to put a baby in her so that she can have the heir to the demon realm and take over his kingdom. So we have kind of an evil lady, and I like her a lot, even though she's definitely a rapist. She is, let's call it what it is. She is torturing him to get him to sleep with her, which he refuses to do. And it just leads to a whole lot of trouble. But this book, I'm told this is like the first of the really dark ones. And I'm like, they get darker. And I loved it because there really has to be like, Rydstrom, he has some misguided principles. But he's a noble person. Like, we've seen him do great things before. He's just very obsessed with getting his kingdom back. And the things that Sabine does to him and the way she treats him, they, like, really start to descend him into madness. As it would be to be edged for 3 days straight. That's a bit much. And then there's a turnabout as fair play. But is it when we're talking sexual things where now Rydstrom has her captive and he's like, you're going to get back what you were due. It's dark. It's dark. It's wonderful. I cannot wait to listen to, once I'm done filming today, I'm starting book 8 because for now I'm going to skip the novellas because I did my research, people, and I heard that not a lot of people love that one and that it doesn't propel the story as much as the main ones do. So I will get back to it. I will read it when I've read all the other main books and I'm dying for the next one like everyone else. I will go back and listen to, because I haven't listened to the first novella either about Mist and Nikolai. So I'm like saving those and I'm going to go back and listen to them later. Then the last one I need to talk about is Man of My Dreams, which was our historical romance buddy read for this month. I finally bit the bullet and I read this one, and I only gave this one like a 2.75. I rounded it up to 3. It had a lot of potential for me because this book is a hate to love, and it's also a hidden identity. So our main girl character, she's been treated kind of poorly by some people in her neighborhood, and so to get a higher social standing, she wants to set her eyes on the Duke who lives in the neighborhood, who his name is supposed to be Sir Ambrose, Duke of Ambrose St. James is what his name is. And so she is going to set her sights to marry him. Unbeknownst to her, Devlin Jeffries, a horse trader, starts work at her father's stables, and he is said Ambrose St. James in disguise because one of his friends wants to kill him because his friend's sister told a lie that he had slept with her and she's pregnant and she's blaming it on him, and that didn't happen. And so he, isn't predisposed to feel too kindly to women wanting to marry him for his money at this point. And so they have this instant dislike for each other, and she can't get him fired because her father knows who he is and is hiding him, basically. And they just have such a contentious relationship. And it has so much sexual tension, and I love that. I do. But it's one of those where, like, even as they start to love each other, they don't soften towards each other at all. And, like, even up to, like, the last pages of the book, they're just, like, hating on each other. And they just are ridiculous. And so I was waiting for this turn where I would really like it. And then also, so I think this one's from the 90s. This is a recovering. So this one was originally from 1992. And the sex was unsatisfying. Like, they have so much sexual lead up. And then, well, number one, their first time isn't great. because he's really drunk and like it's bad, which I always think that's funny. Like I love when there's like bad sex in a novel and then you have to like do it better later. I love that. That happens in Kiss of a Demon King too, by the way. I love it. But they'll like lead up to a sex scene and then boom, boom, and then they're waking up and I'm just like, it's Johanna Lindsay. Why am I not getting better sex from this? So also he's like kind of abusive to her, and he of course is getting away with it because her father won't fire him, but also because she knows her dad won't fire him. Like she doesn't tell her dad any of the things that he does to her, which a lot of them happen before she's even like interested in him. And so it just didn't work for me. And so I was kind of sad. But I have, you know, I'm still going to keep reading books, and it's just always sad to me when a historical romance doesn't work for me. But it's like all other romances, they're not all going to be a winner. So there you go. Here's a super long weekly wrap up. You see why I do weekly wrap ups now? Because I can talk about books forever. So make sure you check out that romance booktuber Discord I talked about. Make sure you check out my Discord for our monthly buddy reads that we do. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Bye.